annual targets. If you're 3 months into the year, a quarter into the year, 2 quarters into the year, and the targets for your key performance indicators, whether they're performance-based, revenue-based, whatever like those metrics are that have an end of year annual target, what do we do when we're clearly not hitting our targets and we're early in the year? Do we change the annual targets or do we keep as is?
Jeff, I know you and I both have some thoughts about this, but maybe we give everyone else a chance to share first. What do you think?
I want to hear from other folks. Like, posed with that question.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
So I look at this as kind of like the NFL kicking experience or collegiate kicking experience, right? If you have a kicker that continually pushes the ball right, do you move the goalpost so he continually makes it? No, the goalposts stay the same. So for me, what I've always done throughout my career is said the targets are the targets, right? We either need to change our activity to meet the targets, but changing the targets to meet the activity just kind of, to me, that's always seemed a bit like trying to improve my success to fulfill a narrative rather than say, what do we need to do? Now, I look, sometimes you overshoot, right? You set a target that's just too far beyond what reality will dictate. And I guess that there are always some outliers. But for me and the clients that I've always worked with, I've always said, keep your targets what they were, do a revised or a mid-year adjustment that's based on what, reality is telling us. But I've never been a big fan of changing the annual targets because of what we saw after 3 or 6 months. But I've always said, keep it that way, but then explain either your activity level wasn't right or we didn't do something in the right area. But don't, in my opinion, don't shift the targets to meet your reality to create better opportunities for success. Keep the goalposts where they are, get a better kicker or kick from closer in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
What do other people think? Change it, keep it the same?
Hey, Jeff, I'll just chime in. And if other folks come off mute, I'll zip it. It's kind of hard to argue with Jeff's analogy. It's a pretty good one. So I love that. I do think the variability in business can be such that, you get 3 months into the year and you already know you're not going to hit your goals. And it's just demoralizing month after month, quarter after quarter. So I do think if you're going to change the targets, then the rest of the plan and the budget needs to be adjusted. So I think just that's just kind of a comment to make. And I'm torn on this too. I think it's one thing about motivation of the team. And really at the end of the day, if we're all running, and this is next week's collab, we're running a really solid quarterly review and refresh cycle. It's as much, it's about delivering the business results, and part of delivering the business results is the team motivation. And so really what the crux of it is not, feeling like the team's demoralized every month. So that's the balance, I think. And so change the strategy, change the kicker, or if you're going to change the goalposts, then the field needs to change, because that doesn't work. Then the calculus doesn't work. So love to hear from other folks on this too, because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this.
Erica, sticking with the previous athletic analogy, I kind of like the idea of a basketball game that has 4 quarters. So, I've coached basketball before, and when your team gets behind by 20 at the start of the first quarter, the conversation becomes, let's win this next quarter. So in business circles, I guess if you can reframe that end target annual goal down to a quarter and say, let's win this quarter. What does that mean? Let's score 1 more point than the opponent in this quarter, or in our case, let's be better than we were the first quarter. So just always kind of setting the target to get a little better. And that's one of the things with annual targets for me too, is not necessarily being realistic, but always making sure there's continuous improvement. So wherever you're at, if you're going to set an annual target, it just has to be, even if it's not specific number, but we're going to be better than this number we had last year is going to be this much better. And then the idea that if you're working to get better, time is on your side. If the trend line is going in the right direction, you will get to where you want to go along. It may take a little longer, but time will be on your side. So
That was a really good, Jim, I'm glad you said that. That was really good, because I was going to add on before you jumped in and said, in our firm, we have weekly meetings that are judged against the annual target. And when we look at each week over the course of the year, we have some really good weeks and we have some really bad weeks in terms of targets hit and sales numbers and things like that. But then we look at that adjustment, and to Jim's point, you win the next quarter, or you win the next week, or you win the next month. And just because the first quarter might have been down, who knows what the next 3 quarters are going to hold. And so I like that. I like that analogy about winning the next quarter or the next week or the next time period, but keeping that annual piece in mind, because we know it's not a sprint, we know it's a marathon.
Yeah, I love that. Is like that perspective of looking at a shorter horizon and what can we do in the upcoming quarter to move the ball farther down the field, and yes, keeping the target, the annual for context. I think that was really, a powerful insight, Jim. I learned from that for sure. And I also, I've known in my own experiences when organizations are not hitting early on the trajectory for hitting their end of year target, is that target was based on a hypothesis. Let's go back and where did we get it right and where did we get it wrong, so we can learn and do better around target setting. I mean, sometimes things will happen to us that we couldn't have ever imagined happening. They're out of our control, but a lot of target setting is in our control. So where did we mess it up? What did we oversimplify or underthink in target setting, so we can learn and become better leaders by having that conversation?
here's a question, more than a statement, but when working with the governance level of an organization, and you set budget and you set targets based on budget, and that organization's working through, and something changes in the economy, I'm thinking specifically about a financial institution, and then interest rates change, and all of a sudden those annual targets that everyone has their short-term and long-term incentives based on, you kind of blow up. That's a difficult thing for that board to decide how to handle that. So in some ways, how do you adjust or not adjust and hold to your targets and allow for reality to brush up against it? But I think Erica said it, and I really like what she said about budget. It really boils down to reworking the budget, or if you're going to do that kind of work, then it seems like it might be worthwhile. But I just curious how a board might handle that when you're looking at your CEO and C-level suite folks. What do you do? When the environment changes.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome perspective. It's a difficult question to answer as well. What do you think, Erica?
Just going to say, and I'd love to hear from other folks on this too. I mean, and it is going to change, right? Like that's, if nothing else, like we know stuff's going to change. And so, maybe the takeaway on this too, and I welcome any other thoughts on this as well, is that when we are entering into our goal setting process and our strategy creating process with a governance board that we might be accountable to, or we are facilitating accountability to, perhaps that's part of the conversation in relation to the guiding principles and our approach to change. And change is a big word, I know, but whatever, like what is our approach to that? Let's talk about it beforehand. And then also the reality though is, I think that we would I think there is the reality that is, if we're going to change the targets, then something else has to, the expense side of the equation is going to need to change. And that's a big undertaking. I mean, no doubt about it. So, so maybe that's a takeaway that I hadn't thought about till just now is, we're responsible for our governance and our accountability to a governing board, and agreeing on the approach to the unforeseen changes that are likely going to derail our plan. What's our approach?